I'm sorry, dude. Let's scratch that one. That was terrible.
No, we're keeping that.
My voice just didn't sound there, man. I didn't do my vocal warm-ups.
You didn't do your warm-ups?
Usually,
you weren't drinking hot water and honey to get ready?
God damn it. Can I do it again?
No, that would...
I don't want to keep that, man. It wasn't the right note. It wasn't the right tone.
No, we call you one take Chatham. That was your one take. That's the one you get.
Mean one pump Chatham.
I mean, it all means the same thing.
It all means the same. Okay, welcome back. I'm Wes Chatham, and this is my friend Ty Franck, and this is Ty and That Guy, the most popular podcast in my living room.
Yeah.
Well, today we're talking about 602, Azure Dragon. Azure Dragon. Who directed this?
I believe this would be Jeff Woolnough.
And who was the scribe? I can say fellow scribe because I'm a scribe. I'm in the union.
I believe that Daniel and I got the credit for this one, but like all of the scripts in season 6, we've talked about this. All of the scripts in season 6 were written by the whole team. So the way we broke the scripts up in season 6, which we had never done before on the show, is we had 4 writers. Daniel and I, Dan Nowak, and Narain Shankar were the 4 writers who were left. And we each took a storyline. So Dan Nowak wrote all the Marco stuff. Narain wrote all the Laconia stuff and the drummer stuff. I wrote all the Rossi and Bobby stuff. Daniel wrote all the Avasarala stuff. So we kind of split it up by storyline and wrote them that way. So Daniel and I, our names are on episode 2, but it's a team effort. It's all of us working on it.
For those of you who saw me just smell my microphone, this is a new microphone, and it has it's like that new foam smell. And I was like, what? I kept being like, what is that? And while you were talking, I was like, so I didn't want anybody to think I had a weird fetish or something. Because I don't, I promise.
Did you not brush your teeth? Have you stunk up your mic already?
No, it's like like new shoes smell?
Oh yeah.
It's like a new foam, and it's like strong, and I'm like, what is that smell? And I was like, oh yeah, it's a new microphone. Side note. So I want to ask you a couple questions, and I know that one of because I've read the books, I've had hours upon hours of conversations with you. I star in the TV show. I know a lot about The Expanse, but one of the things that I know least about...
that's kind of a loose usage of the word star.
Megawatt star. One of the things I want to know more about Laconia, because I didn't read Strange Dogs and I haven't read the last 3 books yet. But I'm interested in it. And I know, like, I was kind of giving you a hard time, whatever, because it has a Pet Cemetery vibe. But I think it's cool, man. And like, what is, and I know, because at the 602, we don't know Duarte's motivations yet. We don't know really what his plans are, what he's doing all the way up for the end of the season, right? But yep. I do love, like, my favorite scene is when he tells Marco, he's like, you were a useful distraction. You're on your own now. And just seeing Marco, like, just eat shit. And you're like, oh, it felt so good. I love that. I love that moment. But can you talk about Duarte or would you rather wait until we kind of get more into it? Because I'm curious about him. I don't know much about him.
So the answer to those questions is read the last 3 books. Because the last 3 books are all about Laconia. They're all about what's happening on Laconia, how that affects the solar system, the galaxy at large, and the widespread human civilization by this point. But, to not give the whole thing away, Duarte is trying to set up what he thinks Mars should have been. He thinks Mars lost its way, failed to become the thing it was supposed to be. So he has gone off. He has claimed one of these planets. He's taken a bunch of like-minded Martians with him, and they are going to build their perfect society, their 1,000-year Reich.
Is there something special about Laconia?
Yes.
That they chose that?
Yeah, and it becomes clear what is special about Laconia as the season goes on. Yeah. And
the protomolecule that's kind of doing weird things on the planet with the dogs and everything like that, is the protomolecule, is that by their design, or is the protomolecule gotten out somehow?
No. So the reason why the Illis story was so important, season 4 story, is because what is made clear in the season 4 story is that when the Rocinante brings active protomolecule into the Illis system, all the ancient machines on Illis start waking up. It's like if you had a bunch of Wi-Fi devices in your house, but no Wi-Fi, So you have all these devices that are looking for a signal so they can turn on, but there's no Wi-Fi, right? And then you walked into the house with a Wi-Fi hotspot. All of a sudden, all this stuff would start turning on, right? Like, oh, there's Wi-Fi now. I can do things, right? And that's kind of what's happening there is there's all these ancient devices that are looking for sort of the protomolecule network, which used to be maintained by the gates, but then, when the gates were closed, everything sort of shut down. And when the Rossi flies through the Illis gate with that little glob of protomolecule under the decks, all of a sudden the Wi-Fi network comes back on and all these machines go, oh, I can start back up and I can start doing things. And so all the stuff on Illis.
Is that what it was in their machine heads? Like, oh, I can start waking up. I can start doing it. Okay, cool.
Machines think that way. Yeah. So they all start waking up and doing stuff. So what's happening? That leads to all the things that happen on Illis in season 4. What's happening in season 6 on Laconia is the same thing that, at the end of season 5, one of the last things we show is Dr. Cortazar radio back saying, hey, we got the protomolecule sample. Everything's waking up. It's working great, right? That's one of the last things we see in season 5. Well, in season 6 now, you've got these people living on Laconia who are getting ready to make use of all this technology on Laconia that's waking up because Cortazar brought protomolecule there. So so the dogs in the scripts we called them repair drones. Mm-hmm. They're these little things that apparently used to run around on that planet, and when stuff got broken, they would get that stuff and they would fix it. A bit of leftover technology from the protomolecule days, and now it's waking up.
It's kind of like, if you're where the air is filled with radio signals all the time. And if you get a tuner, you tune that in, but that signal's still there, just looking for a tuner to tune in. And then Duarte, because didn't you hint about him? I remember Bobby was going through some notes and he came up, and I remember I was like, I heard that name before. So I felt like that was important. What was that about?
Well, so Bobby sees that so there's this pyramid of theft going on in Mars in season 4 and into season 5, right? That somebody is stealing a bunch of very high level military equipment from Mars. And in order to do that, you would have to have significant military authority and access, right? And there's this name up at the top of that pyramid of theft, Admiral Duarte. The one she finds is the guy on the next level down, the guy that Alex goes and visits at the War College in season 5. Mm-hmm. Sauveterre is part of this sort of underground that is stealing from Mars, but his boss, Sauveterre's boss, is this guy named Duarte, which we never really see until season 6. But he's the guy who sort of orchestrated the theft from Mars that he sells some of that military gear to Marco in exchange for Dr. Cortazar and the protomolecule. So that's the trade he made with Marco, which we find out in season 5. That was the trade. And now in season 6, he's got Cortazar. He's got the protomolecule. He's on Laconia. He's got a bunch of Martian equipment that he has stolen. Mm-hmm. And that's all sort of based on what happened in the Soviet Union after the fall of the Soviet Union, that you wound up with all of these generals that had billions of dollars in military hardware, but their paychecks were bouncing because the Soviet Union didn't exist anymore. Mm-hmm. And what they did is they just started selling it.
To other countries?
Yeah, to other countries. Part of the reason the AK-47 is the most ubiquitous rifle in the world is because these guys were just selling them, because there's some general, he's got a warehouse with like 10 million AK-47s in it.
Yeah, he's just selling them.
He just sells them because he doesn't have a paycheck anymore. In the 90s in Somalia, you could buy an AK-47 at an open air market for $15. So everyone had one.
It's crazy to me how quickly people's principles and values and everything just crumble. Yeah. When things crumble, like everything, like what the Soviet Union was and what it said it stood for, and then all of a sudden when it crumbles, how quickly everybody folds within that.
Yeah, you really get to see who people are when their paychecks start bouncing.
You know what's interesting is I'm reading the Samuel Adams book right now, and like the build up to the revolution, like we were constantly stealing weapons and we're stealing ammo and the English and at at that time, I mean it's still like you're watching The Expanse, it's still it's still the kind of thing, but the reality is our weapons have gotten so much more powerful because we were constantly like the English would lose like cannons and you lose like rifles, and they were constantly losing things, and we were just going by and just scrounging as much as we can.
Yeah.
But in this, and we're at a point now where it's like it's one thing, it's the protomolecule, and everybody is, and once you control that. And, you gave I remember an analogy that you gave one time. I think I read it, but you were talking about, you said that it's like it's like apes finding a microwave.
Yeah.
Right. And they could push a button and it'll come on like, oh, this is a light. This makes light in the darkness, or, oh, I can throw this at people and it'll hurt people. But they just will never be able to conceptualize what a microwave does and how it really works. And so it's kind of like us with the protomolecule and that makes it terrifying to me. It's like, imagine apes with a nuclear weapon, and it's like they have no idea the forces and the danger that they're playing with. And so you look at the protomolecule and you're like, that's 100,000 years of evolution nuclear weapon that we have no idea what we're dealing with. And even, Holden had a premonition of the universe just disintegrating.
Yeah. And that is the story that we're telling there, that the beings, the intelligences that made the protomolecule have been dead for 1 billion years. They're gone, right? So trying to decide for ourselves what they meant it to do, what it was supposed to be used for, like the arrogance in that you're just going to figure it out, that, we're smart enough, we'll figure it out. Like, they're billions of years more advanced than you, and they're all dead, and they left no record behind of what this was for or how to use it. But we're just going to, we'll take it and we'll put it in some labs, we'll experiment on some rabbits, and we'll figure it out. But that's so human, because humans have exactly that kind of arrogance, where we just assume we'll figure it out.
And especially when there's power involved.
Yeah.
Like if you have the protomolecule, and the reality is like, if you don't control the protomolecule, somebody else will. And so, the fact that if you have the protomolecule and you have some sense of how to control it, it's like you got the dragons in Game of Thrones, like the dragons are the most powerful ones. Remind me what the mission was for the Azor dragon.
Marco's Free Navy keeps throwing rocks at Earth and Mars. And now that they know how to find them, the Earth and Mars navies are shooting these rocks down before they can do massive, widespread damage. But part of what he's doing is he's keeping those navies pinned down. It's sort of like if constant missile attacks on the U.S. and our Navy ships could shoot those missiles down, but because they're constant, like all of our Navy ships are trapped at the shore, protecting the U.S., right? And that's what's happening here is the ships are sort of trapped, protecting Earth assets. So anywhere where there's an Earth asset, and it's not just the planet Earth, it's anywhere that there's like a space station controlled by Earth or a settlement controlled by Earth, the Earth ships are trapped at those places protecting them. And so in order to free the Navy up to go actually fight Marco, Avasarala wants to find out how they're doing this. In episode 1, we see the Rocinante on a scouting mission helping with this, and they find a rock that hasn't been launched yet, and they find that drive on the rock, and they're like, oh, this is how he's doing it. He's attaching these ship engines to these rocks, pushing them out of orbit into an intersecting orbit with Earth, and that's how he's throwing rocks at the Earth.
But the mathematics behind that is insane. To be able to like calculate that orbit in that pool and then that pool and like where it's going to end up.
We do that all the time. It is very complicated math, but it is well understood math. NASA engineers do that kind of calculation all the time.
Now, is Marco like pinpointing the attacks, or he just wants it to hit Earth somewhere?
He just wants it to hit Earth. Yeah, you just got to push it into Earth's orbit so that Earth's gravity well grabs the rock and pulls it down. That's all you got to do.
What keeps it from orbiting Earth? It's got to puncture that and go deep enough to where the gravity well will pull it down.
Yeah, I mean, and there's math to figure that out. Like, because you don't want it to be far enough away that the orbit of Earth just grabs it and slingshots it off in a different direction. So
for those watching, I'm going to do the math right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we have here right here,
but anyway, so when they find that, Naomi pulls apart the guidance system, the system that takes the signal that tells it when to fire and where to go, and figures out, because she's Naomi and she's a genius, she figures out, oh, there's a ship out here somewhere that's signaling these things to tell them when to fire. When Avasarala gets that information, she sends Bobby. She's like, we need that ship. We need to know who's ordering these rocks to fire and how they're doing it. And she sends Bobby to go join the Rossi crew to capture the ship, which is what happens in the second episode. Azure Dragon is they're hunting that ship.
Where did you get the idea about the rocks and Mark using as a weapon?
That's an old idea in sci-fi. It's been around forever. I mean, I think I mentioned before that the first time I remember reading it was in Moon is a Harsh Mistress, which I think came out in like the 50s or 60s. But that idea, the idea of you just throw heavy rocks at a planet and you'll fuck that planet up, is a very old idea in sci-fi. We did not invent that. The reason that it gets used over and over is it's so effective. Like if you just take a big hunk of rock and drop it on a planet, that's like setting a nuclear bomb off.
Now, wasn't in Starship Troopers, weren't the bugs like doing something like that? They were like shooting something at the other planets. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so at this point, Naomi is overcome with trauma and she's unable to, and that's one of the things that you guys do really well is have everything, it's like, I mean, to give an extreme example, you watch the A-Team and, the next season is like, everybody's like fresh as a daisy and ready to do the next thing, whatever. But the Expanse has a memory and Naomi went through something that's fucking horrible. And most shows, like the next season, everything's fresh. They don't really have the emotional memory of what happened to them.
Yeah.
And the fact that thing happened to her, she's unable to, she freezes up. She has that trauma freeze response.
Yep.
And then Peaches has to step in, which, gives Peaches a moment to really start to be a part of the crew.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about what happened to Naomi, the last time she jumped out of an airlock, she wasn't wearing a suit. And it did horrible damage to her. Like it did physical damage. It did emotional and mental damage. Everything that happened to her on the ship that she went to, where she didn't have any air, she didn't have any water. She was desperately trying to stay alive. So you've read that book, The Body Keeps the Score, right? And,
yes.
And the reality is the reason people get PTSD is because those traumas live in us physically. And you never know what's going to trigger it, but the triggering thing that will happen will launch an anxiety attack that you don't know is coming, you don't expect. Just all of a sudden, like,
oh my God.
I remember reading about this woman who she was with one of the supply convoy units in Iraq. So she was, on the trucks that were driving the supplies around and watched one of the trucks get destroyed by an IED. And everybody in that truck ahead of her got killed, and it was horrible, and there's body parts all over, and it was really horrifying, right? And years later, she was in, and I think they used this story in like a TV show I watched, but this actually happened. She was driving like her kid to school or to like a grocery store or something, and a grocery bag had gotten hung up on a fence post next to the road, and it was kind of flapping in the wind. And she had a full-blown panic attack where she lost time. She suddenly was in her car and didn't know where she was. Her kid was freaking out. And it was just something about that bag flapping up against that post reminded her trauma of that moment when she watched, 3 or 4 of her friends get blown apart by an IED. And that trauma all came flooding back at once. And that's the thing is when we ignore that is true about humans, I think it lessens the story. And so I love that moment. And it was something we came up with in the room. It's not something that happens in the books, but that idea that Naomi is still paying the price for the things she did in the previous season. Her body's still paying the price for those things. I love that. I love that we don't just hand wave it away. It makes me really happy.
It makes it so much more heroic. But I did read The Body Keeps Score, and that to me, what was really eye opening for that is that your body has a memory, like your mind has a memory.
Yeah,
and actually, in some ways, even when you're very young, before your mind even has the capabilities of holding memories, your body records all that and holds that in, and it's emotionally locked in.
Yeah.
And you can't really, have you ever been in a situation where you just get overwhelmingly furious and you're like, I should not be this angry?
Yes.
At what? And then, you got to follow that anger. You got to follow that thread, and it's always attached to something that you've never really processed or fully dealt with. Did you read The Body Keeps the Score for research in this, or
no? I actually, most of what I know about it comes from my wife, who reads a lot of that kind of book. Part of what she had to learn to get her degree was psychology. So she's done a lot of study on psychology and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. You see in film and TV and you see like these extraordinary acts of what they're doing, but the stakes aren't really there because it's for entertainment value. You're not doing that. But when you see Naomi going through what she went through, you're like, man, how much courage, because it's real now.
Yeah.
And you're like, the courage that she had to do what she did to save her friends is and you feel it so much more.
Yeah. And that's the idea, is that it's not because Naomi is weak. It's not because she's fragile and she's just a big baby. And it made me, there was a few, I'm not even going to call them fans. I'm going to call them people who watched the show and didn't understand it, who had that reaction of like, oh, look, Naomi's being a big baby about what happened to her. Fuck that. I don't care how much of a badass you are. I don't care how big and muscular and powerful and how many years of jiu-jitsu and gun training you have. You go through a really traumatic experience like that, like this soldier that I'm talking about, she's not a baby. She's not a coward. She went to Iraq and fought in a war. She's got all the training and all that stuff, but you watch something traumatic, like a bunch of your friends getting blown up. Or in Naomi's case, you go through something traumatic, like hurling yourself out of a spaceship without wearing a suit and suffering all that physical trauma. That doesn't just go away.
Yeah, the people that made that comment, their only experience of violence has been through movies and television and video games.
Yeah.
Because they've seen consequence-free violence. And there's a lot of people that are like, oh, I wouldn't have done that or whatever. And if you've ever experienced anything like that, it's, trying to, you have no control over that. That's like controlling if somebody cuts you to stop your bleeding.
Right.
You're going to bleed, and so... But that's what makes it so much more heroic, is that there's always a cost.
Yep.
There's a cost. These people that have done these, heroic things in war, and they've, stood up to people, whatever. There's going to be a cost to be paid for that. Yep. Nothing is free. And even war heroes, you hear about them and you hear what they come back and what they go through, and there's no, there isn't much more courageous than that. So
well, and there's a reason why such a high percentage of combat veterans are in psychological care, psychiatric care. They have PTSD. They have that trauma that their body is working through for years afterwards. And some people never get over it. Some people never fully recover from those traumas. So I think you do a disservice to your story when you don't acknowledge the price people pay. And season 6, it's the war story. It's War and Peace. And it is about the trauma and price of war. And Stephen has talked about the fact that he deliberately cut a bunch of weight before season 6 because he wanted Holden to look worn out and stringy and exhausted. Naomi's dealing with her PTSD. So Amos doesn't really have fear, and he doesn't have that kind of PTSD. But look how angry Amos is in season 6. Because Amos's way of dealing with trauma is with anger.
Well, you think about when Amos lost his sight, and that level of vulnerability back in the day. And so this is a situation where it's kind of connected to that, where his crew is crumbling around him.
Yeah.
And he can't understand why we keep evolving ourselves in this. This is something that I can see Amos's point. Yeah. There's a moment, there's a thing that when I look at that, I'm like, yeah, why the fuck? Wouldn't you get to a point where you're like, Holden, stop. Just fucking stop. We need to take the Rossi. We need to go make money. We need to protect our crew because everybody's out of their fucking minds. Everybody's out for power. Everybody's trying to control the protomolecule. They're going to kill themselves. And why are we a part of this? And so in this season, I can see that happening because it's also, it's also a moment where Amos is coming into his own a little bit and starting to make his own choices and look at things. Yep. Because early on, he'd be like, I feel this way, but I think Holden's probably a better judge of this than I am. And so now that this is happening, he's kind of coming on.
You can't discount the fact that he's dealing with trauma too. Yeah. And just because his trauma shows up as anger doesn't make it any less of traumatic, right?
Right.
I mean, everybody's emotion that comes from that trauma shows up in a different way, and his doesn't seem like fear. Like you watch him and you're like, well, Amos isn't scared. No, Amos doesn't have that kind of fear that we think of when we say fear. But but he has trauma, and his trauma shows up as anger and it shows up as rage. And he's dealing with his shit too. I mean, he's got some shit too.
And his no fear is not like, Rambo having no fear.
Right.
It's like if you were severely burned on your skin and it's numb.
He's deadened.
And then somebody, you can hold a lighter underneath your skin and you can not move. And everybody's like, wow, no, he just doesn't feel it.
Yep.
He doesn't feel it.
Yep.
Doesn't affect him.
Those nerve endings have been burned out.
Now we'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsor, NordVPN. Ty and I have been using NordVPN to protect our devices from malware, stream movies and TV shows while traveling abroad, and stop getting those annoying pop-up ads.
Nobody likes a pop-up ad.
Nobody likes a pop-up ad. NordVPN can even help you organize all your passwords and provides threat protection by automatically blocking suspicious websites. NordVPN is giving Ty and That Guy listeners, I'm talking to you, baby listeners, a special deal if you sign up by using our link. Grab our
exclusive
NordVPN deal by going to nordvpn.com/TATG to get a
huge
NordVPN plan plus 4 months for
free.
It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. That's nordvpn.com/TATG to get a discount off your plan and 4 months for
free.
NordVPN. Take that to the bank, baby. So let's get to Drummer's, what happens with Drummer in this. And this was the first time we see Walker, right?
Yes. Yeah, Liang Walker. Yeah, everybody fell in love with him. Everybody felt like he was, like, for a guy who only existed in the show for a couple episodes, he had such an arc and the fans loved him. Like, I think it's that moment, and this is a Daniel Abraham moment. That moment where he's talking to Drummer and he's talking about the reason that Marco hates him and gives him the shit jobs. And he says, it's because I intimidate him sexually. That's a Daniel Abraham line. I guarantee Daniel wrote that line. But once he says that, immediately everybody in the audience is like, this guy's fucking cool. We're in.
Yeah, he was in. That was the intro line. There's always that one line where it's like, oh yeah, I'm into that. Yeah, I'm in that. What is his story? Tell me a little bit about Walker.
Well, so the idea is, the backstory that we don't dramatize is that he was a pirate. He's a member of Golden Bough, which is a criminal organization in the Belt. That's come up a few times in the past. He was a member of Golden Bough. He was a pirate. But when Marco sort of absorbed all of those gangs, Marco just absorbed them, right? And they all became part of the Free Navy. Golden Bough became part of the Free Navy. What Walker's saying there is not everybody in Golden Bough loved that idea. Not everybody loved being part of the Free Navy. And so some members of the Golden Bough declined to join the Free Navy and elected to stay criminals. And Walker's sort of walking the line between them. Like, he's in the Free Navy and he like runs cargo for Marco, but he also kind of steals some of it because he's still kind of a pirate too. So he's trying to walk that line between the two. And Drummer knows him from his piracy days. She knows him from that. And she's trying to get Michio. Michio is sort of breaking down. Michio, we're talking about all the PTSD stuff. Michio is breaking down under the stress of this war that they're fighting. And she's like, I need to get Michio out of here. She made a terrible mistake in episode 1 that cost them a ship. They need to get her someplace where she's going to be safe. And she knows that Walker is running cargo to all these stations. So she's like, we'll put Michio on his ship. Walker will take her to a safe station. She can live there for the rest of the war. And then when the war's over, we can go get her. Right? That's the idea.
What's the deal that Drummer makes with Walker?
That she's going to pay him for taking Michio to another station. The idea is that Drummer is going to pay Walker to transport Michio to another station. And that's why Walker only calls Michio Cargo. Like, Cargo becomes his nickname for her. Mm-hmm. So he says, every time he talks about her, he calls her Cargo because she's just a thing that he is being paid to take someplace. Right. In his mind. Right. Yeah, that's the deal. And she even says, like, he says, this isn't the full amount. And she says, yes, some of my accounts have been frozen, but I'll get you the rest. And, you know, and Walker knows that drummer's good for it. She has a reputation. She has a good reputation in the belt. So, you know, he's agreed to do this, even though she doesn't have all the money up front.
Right. I'm excited about our top 5 this episode. All right, Joseph, bring on the top 5.
Yep.
Okay. Top, sexy, intimidating. Is that?
So it's they have to be both sexy and intimidating. Is that the idea?
That messes
intimidating
me up.
is a bonus, I would say,
Okay.
but obviously top sexy.
I love anyone who is both sexy and intimidating.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan. Like if you give me a badass warrior who's also sexy, you know, that's why I love Conan. Conan's a complete badass, but he's sexy as hell.
Hey, should we do a female list and a male list, or should we have them like a co-ed list?
I don't think we should segregate. I think it should just be a joint list. Yep.
Okay.
Well, you and I are comfortable enough with our sexuality that we don't have a problem with that.
I'm so comfortable. I want to give the proper amount of time to the dudes in this because, you know, I mean, listen, Monica Bellucci goes number 1.
Yeah, Monica Bellucci is always number 1 on any list.
And you can say The Matrix, but basically Monica Bellucci in anything. And this is character, so let's just say her character in The Matrix.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, Foxy Brown.
I do love me some Pam Grier.
I do love Pam Grier.
And I would, so you got Charlize Theron there for Atomic Blonde. I actually like her better in Fury Road.
Yeah.
For me, I Furiosa is like peak intimidating and sexy.
What about Halle Berry's character in Swordfish? God.
I didn't find her intimidating. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, Halle Berry can't help but be sexy. She has no choice about that. But
Halle Berry.
What is Magnum P.I. doing on this list? There's nothing sexy about that guy.
Dude, you watch your tongue. You hold your tongue. All right? Magnum P.I. created this list.
The only reason I'm talking shit about Magnum P.I. is because I know he's on the list for you. So we definitely
I think we do male and female because I want to go into my Legends of the Fall pit.
So we'll have them both. We're doing 2 lists, Joseph. We're doing the top 5 ladies and the top 5 dudes. But here's the thing, though, is the bad thing about that is I think there are some people who belong on the list that don't easily fall into either the male or dude category. I don't know if you watched the most recent Hellraiser.
I haven't.
But Pinhead played famously by a trans actor, but the original Pinhead from the books is supposed to be both erotic and sort of not either gender. And I think the trans actress that they got to play Pinhead perfectly embodied that. And that sort of like terrifying S&M version of sexy. I mean, I think there are people who could go on the list who don't fit into
those two.
into the.
So should we have
purely,
3 list?
Well, no, I think we should give Jamie Clayton from Hellraiser a special mention as the scary, intimidating, sexy kind of thing that doesn't easily fall into into one of the lists.
So peak pit for me is Legend of the Fall. Tristan, Legend of the Fall.
Yeah.
His biggest competition is Tyler Durden from Fight Club.
I'm sorry, Tristan is way sexier than Tyler Durden.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a Tristan guy, but it's like, you know, in terms of characters, like, you know, it's hard not to have Tyler Durden on that list somewhere.
Yeah, and as Joseph is pointing out, Tristan fought a grizzly bear. If you got that flowing blonde hair, those perfectly chiseled pectoral muscles, and you're fighting grizzly bears with a Bowie knife, there's no competition there.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's like Paul Newman and HUD, right? It's like perfecting beauty and masculinity in one man, like Brando on Streetcar Named Desire, right?
Ooh.
It's like,
he's that's a good one, Brando. Yeah. I think Brando should go on our dude list here for sure.
Yeah, and there's something about Brando within Streetcar Named Desire is like he's the most feminine person in the room and the most masculine person in the room at the same time.
Yep. I would be okay with Newman from HUD going on the dude list.
Yeah, Newman from HUD. That's got to get on there, dude. We're clearer on the dudes than we are the women. We're coming back.
We're coming back to the ladies. We're coming back to the ladies.
But Monica Bellucci's like an eclipse, a total eclipse of the heart.
Yeah.
You know, once I see her in a film, it's like I forget that there was others that existed.
I don't disagree with that, but I would put Fury Road, Charlize Theron on there for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would go Foxy Brown or Coffee, because they're both great Pam Griers, and I love them both equally. I don't know if I mean Foxy Brown is fine. But Coffee's also great. You know, the other one that she's great in is
Jackie Brown.
Jackie Brown. Thank you.
That's
Jackie
right.
Brown.
I got confused. Jackie
you know
Brown.
what? I would do Jackie Brown instead of Coffee or Fox. Do Jackie Brown. Yeah.
But Jackie Brown, she's not as intimidating as she is in Foxy Brown.
Okay, so the difference. Here's the difference with Jackie Brown versus Foxy Brown is Foxy Brown era Pam Grier is scary because she's a badass. She'll kick your ass. She'll cut you with a razor blade, or she'll shoot you. She'll blow your head off with a shotgun. So that's what makes her scary. Pam Grier as Jackie Brown is that same woman, but older and wiser and more cunning. And to me, I think the level of cunning and intelligence and determination that Pam Grier brings to Jackie Brown makes her more intimidating to me. There's a scene at the end of Jackie Brown where she's talking to Robert Forster at the end, and she says, "Are you scared of me?" And he just nods and holds up as he goes, "A little bit." She is scary. The way she decides she's going to take Ordell Roby's money, she decides to take his money and sets him up to be killed by the police so that she can take his money, and just follows through that whole plan and gets it done. To me, that's pretty intimidating. I'm scared of her.
What about Penelope Cruz and Vicky Cristina Barcelona?
I mean, you don't have to argue hard for Penelope Cruz.
Dude, she drives me crazy in that.
Oh, dude list, gotta go Roadhouse Patrick Swayze.
Gotta go Roadhouse Patrick Swayze.
Gotta go Roadhouse Patrick Swayze.
Yeah.
That's peak Swayze.
That is peak Swayze.
And as Dan would say about this list, no Swayze, no Wazy.
There's no Swayze, no Wazy. Okay. Oh, Lauren Bacall. Well, yeah.
Now, I mean, okay, so I am the world's biggest Cate Blanchett fanboy. You don't have to argue hard for Cate Blanchett in like Thor Ragnarok or something like that. But of the women that we have left on the sort of long list, if you don't go Ellen Ripley, you're crazy.
Yeah. Because
Ripley is one of the greatest badasses in cinematic history.
And sexy. Yeah, I'm with you 100%, Ellen Ripley.
So you've got Michelle Yeoh on here, which, by the way, good choice. But I wouldn't go with Everything Everywhere All at Once. For me, yes. Well, Super Cop, absolutely. Super Cop, she's amazing in Super Cop. I also think she was amazing in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yeah, that's for me, for her, Crouching Tiger.
Yeah, I mean, she's beautiful and tragic and all of that in Crouching Tiger. And classy, but still will fuck you up.
Yeah.
If you start some shit, you're going to get fucked up.
She has such emotional control within Crouching Tiger that she's intimidating. So it's not her physicality, which you know is there. There's something about her that is so wise and so classy and so kind of reserved that could be intimidating. So she fits that. So it's kind of like a Ripley is scrappy and raw, and she's emotionally, out there. This is kind of like that Zen master control over her emotions, and there's something like elevated about her, and she's, mesmerizing to watch. And that combination, and it's sexy and it's beautiful and it's powerful. Yeah. So yeah, I would vote for her on the list. One more on the dudes. All right, let's think about this. Let's just don't throw some dude out there. Let's think about this.
I mean, Game of Thrones Khal Drogo is a good one. I don't know if he's the one you want to go with, but that's pretty peak sexy for Jason Momoa.
You know what? I was thinking a little bit of Idris, but you know what? There's no Denzel Washington on here.
Oh yeah, Denzel. Are you thinking Equalizer Denzel, or are you thinking younger Denzel?
I'm thinking here, yeah, definitely younger. But you know what's funny is this is going to be very unpopular. I know his character was super despicable and is a terrible guy, but I thought he was pretty damn hot stuff in Training Day.
Oh yeah, fuck yeah.
There's something like there was something so like alpha male about him, and like so like
he was was a horrible person in Training Day, but he was mesmerizing.
He was mesmerizing.
You could not take your eyes off of that man. Yeah, I 100% agree with Denzel. Training Day Denzel. Yeah.
Oh, we forgot Sean Connery and Zardoz.
Yeah, no, but Sean Connery in Zardoz transcends lists.
Yeah, you know what?
No list could contain the power of that banana hammock.
Right. So we just did 2 lists, right? And these are people that could be contained in a list.
Yep.
But if we're going to talk about the one character that just embodies sexiness and intimidation, from male, female,
doesn't matter.
Whatever, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's beyond lists. Is Sean Connery in Zardoz?
Yep. And definitely that picture. So here's the level of God mode that Sean Connery is in for intimidating and sexy. Is not only is he wearing a banana hammock and thigh-high leather boots, but his banana hammock, he puts suspenders on it. Because when you got so much action going on downstairs that you're worried your banana hammock cannot contain it without suspenders, that is a bold fucking statement. You are making a statement. You're saying, if I don't have these suspenders, this banana hammock might just fly off of me. I got to keep it on with some suspenders. So that's next level shit.
Every now and then, things just come together, and it creates something so powerful that it is beyond art in itself.
Yeah.
And whatever the brilliant, inspired minds, God shined through them, and they created the perfect outfit to fit the perfect body of the perfect man. And that is Sean Connery in Zardoz.
Yeah. Yep. And they put the perfect outfit in. Oh, hey, another one, Joseph, I would add to the non-binary list, even though he never identified as non-binary, but as a character, a non-binary character, the Ziggy Stardust era David Bowie. Sexy as fuck, very much playing the sort of non-binary kind of character with Ziggy Stardust. Yeah.
No, I do you one better. Him in Labyrinth. His character in Labyrinth
his character in Labyrinth is super sexy, but I think definitely male.
The leotards with the bulge, and then the
giant cod piece.
Very androgynous. Yeah, the giant cod piece with the high collars.
I would say that David Bowie often played characters, even though he did not identify as non-binary. He often played characters that were very androgynous, and for me, peak androgynous Bowie is Ziggy Stardust.
I disagree. I'm going Labyrinth.
Joseph, pull up a picture of
I'm
Ziggy
Bowie,
Stardust here.
You're not going to show me anything about Bowie that I don't know. I'm a huge Bowie fan, and you know what? Let's do this. Put a picture of Ziggy Stardust, and then put a picture of him in Labyrinth next to each other.
I see your Bowie, and I raise you this Bowie. Oh my God!
Okay.
Look at that! Look at that!
All right. Ziggy's a cooler Bowie, which I don't even know I agree with, but I think sexy Bowie is peak in Labyrinth.
Nah, I disagree. I disagree.
We'll see.
I wouldn't make out with Labyrinth Bowie, but I would make out with Ziggy. Absolutely.
It's the lipstick.
It's the whole thing. It's the whole everything.
I just don't believe you.
Oh,
I don't believe.
Absolutely.
You would make out with Labyrinth Bowie way before you would make out with Ziggy Bowie.
Not a chance.
No, you're just trying to win.
Well, I also don't like Labyrinth Bowie because he's stealing my woman. I don't like that.
Look at his hairstyle in Labyrinth Bowie. Like it has
unpopular opinion. I didn't like Labyrinth.
Nobody fucking asked you, Joseph.
Am I fired?
Yeah. Hey, if we actually paid you, you would be so fired.
Good point.
Anyway, yeah, we could let the fans decide on that one. But I agree with the Tilda Swinton thing. And if we're putting Tilda Swinton on the NB list, it would be for Gabriel in Constantine, because Gabriel's supposed to be genderless in Constantine as an angel. And I loved Gabriel. I thought Gabriel was awesome.
I mean, it doesn't, because I think if we're talking about her sexiest character, that's the one where she's in love with the two vampires.
Oh, no, yeah, you're talking about where she changes genders halfway through the movie.
Only lovers left alive. That's peak sexy Tilda.
I'm gonna disagree with you because the movie that I'm gonna say is peak Tilda is.
Do we got to reach out to the Patreon again? I'm fine with it.
We'll have to. Yeah, they can rule on that one.
We
as
might
well.
need them to. Shit, why can I not remember the name of anything right now?
Me neither, man. I'm
just a mess.
Yeah, I'm just a mess.
I hope I didn't brain my damage.
Orlando.
Thank you, Orlando. Yeah, so Orlando is the story about this person who lives for like 300 years, and halfway through their life they switch genders. And Tilda's awesome in that. I'm a huge Tilda Swinton fan, so she can be in anything she wants, and I'll just love it. I was telling you to watch the remake of Suspiria because she's in it.
I did watch it.
I think Orlando wins now because it has Billy Zane in it. So that's the kicker.
That makes no sense.
You did watch the new Suspiria?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I actually thought it was really good.
It was really good, right? We should do an episode where we compare and contrast the two Suspirias.
I'd love to do that. Guys, thank you for hanging out. I can't wait till you pick out Labyrinth Bowie to be the sexiest of our list. And
only if they're both drunk and blind will they make that choice.
We had a great time hanging out. This was episode 602. Please like and subscribe. And we got a lot of goodies coming for you at some point. Joseph will kind of sit down and talk about that, live viewings and live questions and things like that. So see you soon.
Say goodbye, Wes.
Goodbye. Say goodbye, Ty.
Goodbye, Ty.